head straight or my hat's crooked and my head straight?
That happens to me all the time, Ted.
This
is very epic.
Very epic music we're going to get going here.
Royalty free. This is building.
It's building. It's getting there. What we have to do, Dave, is set up a blank screen, and it's like starting in 1 minute. And then
I can do. Yes, we can do all kinds of things, just not when we're live.
Yes, that's right. We are here with Live Long and Podcast, where we break down an episode of a Star Trek series or a Star Trek movie from beginning to end. We will go through this thing, analyzing the best and worst parts of this particular piece of media. Today, we are talking about an original series episode, Season 2, Episode 23, Patterns of Force. 1968. Today on our panel, we have a number of guests that all have different perspectives on what makes this episode good or bad and what makes it stand out in their mind. So without further ado, let's get right into it and introduce our panel. We have to my immediate left, my brother, Dave Mader.
Hello, hello.
Right below me, we have our father, Ted Mader. And in the bottom left corner, we have the ever salty Jody Simpson, who's outside today. And he's,
I am. I'm enjoying the great outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
About 6 feet away from my house.
So that's good. That's social distancing.
I'm keeping a social distance from my back door, and I'm keeping a social distance from my fence. So I think I'm all right.
So this is the podcast where our father, Ted, picks an episode of the original series for us to recap and review. Today he picked Patterns of Force, which is the episode basically where they go down to a planet and it's Nazi Germany because their Kirk's old history professor is missing and is stranded on a planet, and nobody knows where he is or why this world is a Nazi world, but they feel like it has something to do with their old professor, John Gill. Okay, so we start off with the cold open here, guys. The Enterprise is passing the planet Ecos, and they're attempting to locate a cultural observer and historian, John Gill, who was one of Kirk's instructors. Spock and McCoy reminisce about his style of approaching history as a matter of causes and motivations rather than simply dates and events. They get no response, but see a ship that they believe is from Zion. They quickly, or Zion.
Zion. You know, it's Zion.
It's Zion, but it's yeah, right. So they quickly find out it's probable not to be from Zion, as it is an unmanned probe carrying a warhead. So a warhead's coming.
It was from the other planet.
It was from the Ecosians. The Nazis. The Nazi. Yeah. We don't know that yet.
Don't
this
give
is
it
just
away.
in the cold open.
Don't give it away. We kind of
give it
said this was
away.
the Nazi episode, but you know.
Yeah.
They get no response, but see that a ship that they believe is from Zion. They quickly find out it's a probe that's coming toward them, and it's carrying a warhead. Kirk orders Chekhov to fire phasers to destroy the warhead, and they find out it's a thermonuclear warhead. McCoy asks, how did they manage this type of technology? And Kirk says maybe they had help. And then the camera pans to the picture of John Gill. So that's the cold open. So first thoughts on the cold open. Dad, what did you think?
Well, I think they got a big shock when they blew up that probe there, and it turned out to be a nuclear warhead that was not nice. So I guess they had to go investigate after that and see what they're going to find.
Yeah, Jody?
The only thing I thought was awkward about this entire opening was seeing that picture over and over again on the display, like up at the top, like just above the consoles. You're seeing this static image, and there's something unsettling about it. I don't know what it was, but like I'm like, am I watching Knight Rider? Like, what am I doing here? Like, but past that, like, it was an interesting opening, I guess. A little bit more eventful than most openings.
Yeah, it basically sets up this premise that they, it's not unlike maybe the episode we watched with a piece of the action where Kirk and the Enterprise, they have to go investigate things. Something's kind of like there's a mystery. There's something they have to solve, and so they've been sent to kind of figure it out.
Something wrong. Something's not right.
All right. So, and these are from the same season. They only aired a few weeks apart. Piece of the action and this episode.
So yeah, and it's very similar in structure. The only difference is that they're looking for somebody that they know. With a piece of the action, it's just a complete alien planet that they never seem to mention again, or it's just anyway. So basically, what happens in the after the opening theme song, Kirk and Spock decide to beam down to the planet to investigate, wearing civilian clothes, and inject a tracker into their arm. What did you guys think of the tracker that they put into their arm?
I got something to say here.
Is that the first time they ever did that in any of the series?
I don't think I've ever seen them do that ever.
Beam down in civilian wear?
No, they have a tracker in their arms.
No, I don't think I've seen that used in any other episode. That was kind of.
I think that must have been some kind of new technology that just came in from Starfleet Command, and they wanted to give it a try, so they tried it.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm just assuming that.
Now, Jeff, you had talked about how this episode was Inglourious Bastards. And so just them coming down dressed as they were made me think of this.
We're going to be dropped into France dressed as civilians.
Yeah. And then it goes from there. So
you seriously just set that entire thing up just for the soundboard, didn't you?
What?
that clip. You said that all of that just for that clip, didn't you?
I planned out my point using like my voice, my mind, Jody, and then I had a clip to sort of put a period on it.
Back it up.
So yes, I did, Jody. Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? It'll be a fun little experiment to kind of go through the connections here with Inglourious Bastards, because I do believe that this episode is a highly influence of Tarantino's writing process for Inglourious Bastards. So, and I didn't even think of that one, Dave, with the civilian clothes. So that works perfectly. And I'm guessing there's more.
I think we figure that Tarantino has watched this episode and then based a whole movie on it, or at least partly on it. So.
I think for sure. I mean, I think if you asked him, hey, like, did you kind of do this? And he would say, absolutely.
I think it's especially poignant considering that William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy are both Jewish. And this is, only 23 years after World War II ended, the Holocaust, well known. And with all that in mind, like the admiration for Nazi Germany is a little high for me, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, so they beam down and they immediately see a man fall to the ground, and he says, "Hey, they are right behind me. Hide." They do it, and it pans up and they show Nazi soldiers who say, "This man is a Zion pig. You swine defiled us for the last time." Mm-hmm. What was that clip you played, Dave?
That's what you said.
Zion pig.
Zion pig.
All
right. So they.
Sorry, go ahead.
So they do it, and it is a Nazi soldier, and so they do hide, and the man says that, and then there's an announcement on like the video, like there's a massive billboard of a video, and says there's a directive to eradicate the Zion population. Obvious metaphor for Nazis versus Jews at the time. Okay, so there's a lot of on the nose metaphors going on in this episode. I mean, the Jews are called the Zions. I don't really understand the Akoshin, like why they call the Akoshins, but I'm sure there is a reason.
Because they're from two different planets,
right? Yeah, but the Zion is very makes sense for the Zion.
When they go in, they say that there's an inner planet and outer planet, so they're in the same system. Just
okay, I guess close enough that they can do rudimentary space travel between the two planets, but.
I don't know. They're still driving 30s cars. Okay, yeah, they can go from one planet to another. All right, let's do it.
Right. So revealed in this video, they see that their Kirk's old professor John Gill is the Führer of this world of the Akoshans that are suppressing the Zions, and they're very Kirk especially is very confused because John Gill never would have done this. He was a peaceful man. He was very intelligent. He never would have done this on purpose. So they try to figure this out. He figures out these Nazis are not very bright, though. I wrote this in my notes too. One walks over to Kirk and Spock and he goes, "You Zeon, what kind of monsters are you? The Zeons are sending it against us." And Kirk quickly tricks the soldier, and then Chudo chops him, which knocks him out. And then Spock then tells Kirk to put on his uniform. And then Kirk has to explain this logic to Spock that if we pretend to be them, then we'll get to John Gill, faster. What do you guys think of just that interaction? The amount of times in the original series where either Spock does a nerve pinch or somebody knocks somebody out, and then somehow they get their uniform. It's just it's unbelievable how many times it happens.
They did it in a piece of the action, which again was only whether it was aired or in the story of Star Trek. These only happened a few weeks apart from each other, these events. So Spock's kind of used to going undercover, isn't he?
This after? Yeah, this is after a piece of the action.
What amazes me is the fact that no matter who they run into, they always have a suit that fits.
Right. And McCoy can't even get boots that fit him. The computer can't even make him boots that fit him.
That up. Yeah. The computer has the ability to break down people into tiny, tiny molecules and then repurpose them back in another area, but they can't get the size of fucking boots correctly. That's amazing.
Dad had a point about the Gestapo. What was your point, Dad, about the Gestapo and McCoy?
Well, the Gestapo never wore uniforms. I think Kirk ordered a Gestapo uniform for
Gestapo medical outfit. Yeah, they never wore uniforms.
They were a civilian
organization. Never wore uniforms.
They were civilian. I thought he said to make them like a commander or a lieutenant or something like that. He might have said Gestapo lieutenant or something like that.
He said colonel, actually.
Colonel. Okay.
Yeah, colonel.
So he tells Spock to put on his uniform. They quickly put the nerve pinch number 1. This is nerve pinch number 1 in the episode, guys. On another soldier, so Kirk can have a uniform because Spock took the first one with the helmet that covered his ears. Spock says you should make a very convincing Nazi, which I think is a joke to the fact that Shatner's Jewish, but also that Shatner, they're both Jewish guys, but Shatner looks more like an Aryan race person with the blue eyes and the blonde hair, right? So I think that's a big part of it. They also I'm not sure. Yeah. So Spork is forced to remove his helmet so the next scene is he's forced to remove his helmet by a superior officer. They kind of pass this guy and they kind of pretend to be Nazis. And then eventually that's what happens before the commercial break is, hey, take off your helmet. And then it's like, oh crap. And then he takes off his helmet. And then that leads to the reveal that obviously he's a Vulcan. So
right. This all went on way too long because he stops him about the salute. He says, hey, you didn't salute me. Hey, where's your papers? He's like, hey, we got to get inside. Kirk keeps trying to like cover for him. And he's like, hey, get that complexion checked out. Because like Spock is painted green. It's not always obvious to us, I think. But I guess maybe on at the time they would always make reference to Spock.
Yeah, you can see it when he's compared with other people.
Right. And I'm like, okay, so he was nearly found out like 3 or 4 times here. And then at the end, they're like, take off your helmet for no particular reason. And then they go, dun, dun, dun. He's got the ears.
Does Leonard Nimoy wear makeup to make him look different as Spock?
Yes.
Like his skin?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He does. So. Okay. So that's okay. I always wondered.
And his eyebrows are...
You can really see it, at least on the copy that I watched this one on Netflix, which is the remastered version. Mm-hmm. So it's got the extra CG, ships and shit in it. But you can really see it, especially in that scene where they both have no shirts on and they're getting whipped, which the makeup on that is incredible and not for a good reason. But anyway, but you can really see the contrast between him. It's supposed to be green, I think, but it's not really green. It's more of kind of like cat vomit orange.
You mean his skin or his blood?
No, his skin. His blood was green.
Yeah, his blood's green, but they paint him. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like an orangey, weird kind of a.
Yeah,
but it's not. The Akocians didn't say anything about that.
Well, they said he's an alien. That's all they said.
Oh, okay.
So they're obviously familiar with the fact that there is aliens, and there can be people with green blood. So
Right. Yep. But yet they say they're like a pre-warp civilization. You know, they're pre-nuclear weapon civilization. How do they know there's aliens? How do they because they know their own 2 planets? Is that why, or is
I would
it
imagine so.
I'm guessing when they broke the Prime Directive, he also told them a lot of other things too.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right about that. So yeah, the one thing I did write about that whipping scene was that they're whipping both Kirk and Spock, and they're both like just taking it like with no pain whatsoever. They're just like, yep.
Oh yeah, it's a terribly acted scene, and the best thing about it is the makeup. The makeup is phenomenal. It looks like they literally just took a felt tip marker and just drew like lines on them. Like there's no like gashes or anything. It's like obviously they're trying to keep it as clean as possible because that's what 60s television was, right? But
Right.
it's you have to use your imagination in that scenario for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kirk wants to speak to the Führer, and he keeps being denied. Like throughout the whole episode, it just keeps going on and on. I want to speak to the Führer, and they're like, no. And he's like, well, this is a
You
one-sided
must make an
conversation.
appointment with internal affairs.
Yeah, you must make an appointment.
You know when,
all these kind of things.
the first guy who caught them, he was the guy organizing the whipping, right?
Yes, yeah.
And then one of the party bosses came in. His name is Enig. Okay,
Right.
Enig comes in, and the guy wants to shoot them, and he goes, no, I want them. You don't shoot them. That's an order. Keep these guys. Put them in a cell. I want to talk to them in an hour, right? And the guy Enig is, believe it or not, he's Gene Roddenberry made his name up from his own name. Did you know that?
No. What do you mean?
Eneg is backwards for Gene.
Oh, Enig.
Enig. Yeah, it's backwards for Gene. And Gene Roddenberry actually gave this character his own name backwards.
Oh, very cool. I did not know that. Yeah,
that's great.
For you.
Your father's
That's a fun fact.
This, huh?
Yeah, well, he's definitely fun. How did you know that, Dad? Did you look that up?
I did a little research. My crack research team pulled it off for me.
The crack research team.
Yeah, I have a crack research team here.
Is that Beth Mater?
That's Beth Mater.
Washing dishes.
I apologize for the plane. Every time I mute my stream, it like crashes Be Live. So I guess I'm gonna not be able to mute it. So sorry about that.
Okay, so what happens is they get put into the jail cell after that, and they're talking to the original Zeon that they saw when they first beamed onto the planet. I think his name is Isaac. Isaac. We can just call him Isaac. It's just easier. They talk to this guy, and they try to explain to him who they are. They try to civilize they talk to who explains that they came here to Ecos and tried to civilize them, but could not once the Nazi movement started only a few years ago, which coincided with John Gill's arrival. Kirk figures out that they need to get transponders out of the trackers in their arms, which they use a bed strap to do, guys. What?
Yes.
Well, it's part of the metal frame of the bed strap, yeah.
Yeah, but come on.
And those were rubidium crystals. Do you know that?
Yeah, I knew there was something crystals.
Rubidium, very rare crystal.
Right. Yeah,
Okay,
and it's actually.
But apparently they react really well with a standard light bulb.
They do. Yes, they do, and they make a accurate laser beam.
That's probably why they're so rare, because everybody who's ever put one near a light bulb gets killed.
So Spock uses Kirk as a boost to get up to the light bulb to use the crystals, which, by the way, is the most gold moments of the episode for me.
Well, just the fact that they both have their shirts off and they're kind of...
Well, and Shatner's bitching the whole time about, like, can you just get this done and get off me? Like,
yeah, so he has a few quotes. He says, he goes, oh my goodness. And then he goes, just get the job done already. And
I got a couple of those here for you.
Yeah, play them because they're gold.
This one is...
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Just hurry.
Mind, Spock. Just get on with the job. Oh my goodness!
Oh my god!
Goodness.
Oh my!
And he wasn't grounded, so if he would have got a shock there, they both could have got fried.
Mm-hmm. And then right at the end, once he finally like uses the crystal to create a laser to break through the jail cell, he goes, "Beautiful, Spock."
Not only that, but like the peg that's actually holding the jail cell is actually on the outer side. So he would have had to shoot that laser through the crack between the two doors, like the door and the cell, and shoot it directly through there just to hit the peg to cut it. I'm like, that's amazing. Spock,
it was an accurate shot.
Amazing.
Yeah, he said he keeps explaining to Kirk, "I don't know how accurate this is going to be."
Yeah, he's bitching the whole time. I don't know how accurate this is going to be. Apparently accurate enough that you can shoot from across the room and get it within a 5mm radius.
Yes, very good.
So then, Spock goes outside of the jail cell, recloses the door, and then Kirk starts yelling for help. "Hey, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to talk." And then we get our nerve pinch number 2 in this episode.
That's
There's
right.
a lot of them.
Kirk escorts. Then they put on the uniform. Kirk does, and then they escort the Isaac and Spock down the hall and bump into a guard, purposely accidentally, and steal his keys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The guard comes back
when you actually watch that scene, though.
Yep.
There's no way in hell Shatner could have got keys out of this guy's pocket. Like, there's no way. His hands were in front the entire time. But anyway,
he's got that sleight of hand. You can watch out.
It's like lightning.
Everything about this episode is like that moment in movies where you're pretending to be the bad guy, and you're pretending so poorly that it's so obvious. Like there's so many moments of that in this episode, and it's just funny to me. So the guard comes back because he figures out he doesn't have his keys. And then he walks into the door and he sees Spock working on his communicator, and he sees Kirk, and then Isaac hits him over the back of the head to knock him out. As I go through this, guys, any thoughts about what's going on in this episode so far?
At this point, I was tracking along pretty well. It wasn't until they sort of got to the hideout that I started like really thinking about some of the things going on there. But I don't know, like the jailbreak itself, whatever, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to see.
Like for the headquarters for the Fuhrer, it wasn't that well protected.
Well, that's later on in the episode.
Hey,
we'll get to that.
hey,
but
they had 2 guys outside. 2. All right.
Yeah. There's always 2 guys
Not
with guns.
1, 2.
But isn't that the same place where they were in jail?
Yeah.
Same
You don't
building?
really
it's
know,
the same
technically.
set. I'll tell you that
Same
much.
set,
The same set for sure.
It looked like the same building.
The best was when they went later on. They went from the lab, and then they went to the lab first, and then later on they had to go to like some cloak room or something, like a coat check room, and it's literally the exact same hallway. They've just taken the sign off the door. It's amazing. Like the fire sign is still there, but the other side isn't. It's amazing.
So then they walk out of the front of that building carrying Isaac on a stretcher, because originally they were just going to give Isaac one of the uniforms, but then they were like, we can't have Spock and his
We've
ears.
killed so many of them, we have to dump them outside now. That's it. That's basically.
Yeah. Even the guards kind of go, what?
The guards are like, what are you, retarded?
Yeah.
But they're like, we're supposed to guard people from getting in, not from getting out.
Yeah,
so
they're
it's
like,
fine.
you can leave all you want. We don't give a shit.
So right after that, they go into the underground sewers where the rest of the Zions seem to be. That seems to be where they're hanging out or where they are.
Yeah.
So Isaac introduces Kirk to his brother Abram, which again a little on the nose,
Mhm.
and is told of the death of his fiancée Oleta. Isaac says a very poignant quote. He goes, "If we adopt the ways of the Nazis, we are no better than them." In the midst
Right.
of this, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, just the fact that so she died. And apparently she didn't die right away. She was on the road for 5 hours, and they were spitting on her
5 hours.
and
They
stuff like
spit on
that.
her, yeah.
Okay. And so I think we get a good glimpse into like the brutality of these Nazis, these Isokian Nazis, if you will. And my question here, Ecosians. Yeah, Ecosians. My question is like, okay, so by the end of this, like they kill Buddy, Melicon, right? Spoilers, but they kill Melicon at the end, right? And then it's all hunky dory after that. They're just, I know it's TV, but like they're like, I was like, this society probably has a long way to go before they're
Well,
going.
you're reading too much into it. You're getting ahead of yourself.
I know. But like,
we're not even to the Loki one yet, Dave. Which
you jumped like 30 minutes of plot right there.
But like, just I know, but just like this point kind of gives you a glimpse into how awful these people are, right?
Well, they're supposed to be compared to the real Nazis, right? Like that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
The real Nazis.
I just don't know if I buy the rosy ending with that in mind. That's all.
Okay, then that's fair. Okay, so let's go back to like what happens in the sewers here. So in the midst of like Isaac and Abraham talking about the death of his fiance and Kirk and Spock kind of like figuring out what's going on, an Akoshian stormtroopers led by a woman arrive, intent on arresting the entire lot, especially Kirk and Spock for breaking out of the prison. She then apparently shoots Abraham dead and plans to finish the job by killing Kirk, and then we cut to commercial. So what
I think is always interesting, which I don't know if you guys have ever noticed watching these again, is have you ever noticed that the woman always shows up around 35 minutes into the show? Have you ever noticed that?
No,
like, it's
is that
almost
a thing?
always that. Yeah, it seems to always be that way.
There's a formula.
There's always a woman, and they're always around the 30-minute mark.
There's probably some kind of network research. Like at this mark, this is when the audience starts getting bored. Throw a woman in there, and we'll all be interested again.
Well, and you know what? This is still one of my favorite episodes when it comes to the original series, but it is still a terrible episode. Like, it's not good, but I love World War II stuff to begin with, so I'm a real big World War II buff. But it's just, it's painful in some scenarios for sure.
You got to look at it with a little bit of. I only have an hour to do it, right?
Well, I understand that, and obviously with commercial breaks, it's actually about 45 minutes. Yeah. Well, an episode's really 45 minutes, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Right. So they the crew are all men except Uhura. So they and Uhura really seems to go on the mission.
This is an episode where you barely see anybody else from the crew. You don't see. There's no Sulu at all. Like I don't think you see anything to do with Sulu. You see Chekhov right at the end.
In the beginning.
And Scotty's there to put
you see Scotty.
tracker.
Yeah, you see Scotty to put the trackers in, which, by the way, we never even bothered to talk about. It was this thing where they basically went like that. It almost sounded like it was farting. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was a hypospray.
Well, it was a hypospray. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
we didn't talk about that. I think that was part one of the ones that you dropped off.
That's not the most ridiculous thing. The most ridiculous thing is them getting it out with a bed strap. But
but the key is when they killed Abram, it was all a ruse to see if Kirk and Spock were on their side.
Right.
So they
it was a cool twist.
So right. So when we come back for commercial, Kirk and Spock intervene and try to stop Doris, as we find out her name is, and then it is revealed that the woman Doris, who they recognize from the propaganda broadcast when they first beamed down to the planet, is an Akoshian member of the Underground, and the storming was a test to see if the two strangers could be trusted. Once Kirk and Spock responded to her apparent murder of Abraham by holding her at gunpoint, those gathered realized that the two strangers were definitely on their side and put an end to the ruse. Kirk and Spock then reveal who they really are and why they are there. So do they break the Prime Directive there, Dave, when they explain who they are?
Effectively, yes, they do. Now you can say that the damage has already kind of been done.
When haven't they broken the Prime Directive in the original series? There's got to be one or two episodes where they didn't, but almost always they did.
It's like they're trying to follow it. It's like they're like really bad Catholics. Like they're trying to live the religious life, but they can't quite do it. They know they should do good, but they don't.
They're whores that are waiting for marriage. Yeah, okay.
Right. But even by the end, you see here, like with John Gill, he kind of says, like, the Prime Directive was important. I messed up. And we're like, yeah, right.
Oh, you think?
So by the time we get to like next
space Nazis, for Christ's sakes.
Right. But I think these episodes are important because like by the time we get to Next Generation and all the other Star Trek that came after, like the Prime Directive was like sacred. And I think these episodes are like the piece of the action and this one.
Yeah. It's like, if you guys can follow the Prime Directive, do it.
Well, you got to remember too, it was early on in Star Trek, so they had to learn a lot of stuff. So they
were building this world. They were establishing how
like
things
baseball.
work.
Willie Mays and Joe DiMaggio set the stage for today's stars. Similar.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. And like, so I agree that this is not textbook Starfleet Prime Directive handling, at least not by the 24th century standards.
No.
But yeah, Kirk very loosely follows time travel and Prime Directive guidelines, and any kind of guidelines he doesn't set.
He loosely follows everything.
Okay, so the next opportunity to get to the Führer, they decide, is an upcoming speech in the Chancellery in which Isaac suspects war will be declared on Zeon, the final solution. Again, another ode to the final solution for the Jews, and I mean the metaphors are really on the nose here. I mean, they couldn't be more on the nose if they tried. To infiltrate the Chancellery, Kirk and Spock accompany Doris and Isaac in Nazi disguise to the Führer's headquarters, posing as the Nazi documentary crew to try and reach Gil. Now, this is the part of the episode that is literally Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Have you seen that movie?
Oh yeah.
They got right in by those real brainy guards.
Right, but you have to watch the movie Inglourious Bastards, because I'm pretty sure you have not seen it. But if you do, you will find out how similar
it's very similar
it is to this episode.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
They literally dress up as as Italians in that movie, but but they infiltrate this Nazi event as a documentary film crew.
Yeah,
following around a Nazi underground infiltrator person.
Yeah, and she's blonde.
She's blonde, and
she looks just like Doris. I mean,
Bridget Van Hammerstark.
Yeah, they're so similar. I mean, I think he probably casted her for that purpose, just because I think he wanted all the correlations to line up. I think Tarantino was probably such a fan of this episode. It's so who Tarantino is.
We also have to remember that Nazi Germany was all about tall white blonde women.
For sure.
So,
we didn't forget.
Okay, so
I didn't.
So Kirk, Spock, Isaac, and Doris walk down a corridor pretending to film a record of the Führer's final solution speech. During this, Spock catches a glimpse of John Gill in a guarded room, seemingly drugged. Kirk tells Spock they need Dr. McCoy. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
We need to stop here. Why does the room have a window? Why is that window directly facing the hallway that everybody can walk by and see? They're trying to keep this guy a secret. He's in this media room or whatever they want to call it. I can't remember exactly what they called it. But whenever he talks to his people, he's talking on a screen. He's never in person, standing at the podium. He's always in a screen, and he's doing that, right? And to me, it doesn't make any damn sense. Why would there be a fucking window there? It's so convenient. But anyway.
The window he gets no, you mean the window on the door, right?
On the door.
Yeah, the window on the door, the one that Spock literally looks through and goes, "Oh, there's Gil."
And he's drunk.
I don't know.
We need McCoy.
We need McCoy.
Yeah, now we need McCoy.
Jody, that probably saved 2 more of those Vulcan neck grip things.
Well, you already did 4 of them. You might as well keep going.
I know, we've only had 2 more. They don't want to do too many in one episode.
Was it only 2 so far?
We've only had 2 so far. Yeah. I counted them. I counted them every time.
But the guys at the door, that's later on. Okay,
that's later on. He does 3 in this episode.
I'm so screwed up on our timeline now because Dave took us right to the end.
So they know he's in there, but they walk by that office, and then they come back.
And then they find out he doesn't look right, so they need McCoy, because only a doctor can figure out that the guy, what kind of drug he's on, and how we're gonna fix this, basically.
There's any doctor in this world that can literally walk and look at somebody and go, "Oh, it's that drug they gave him." Come on.
So, okay.
Obviously, he's under something, but.
Right.
So McCoy beams down, right?
So here's what happens. Kirk hides inside a cloakroom with Spock and asks Lieutenant Uhura to have McCoy beam down from the Enterprise. However, they learn from Doris that the transmission was traced, prompting a search party. The Doctor joins them dressed in a Nazi colonel's uniform and throws the search party by pretending to be drunk.
Yeah.
So here's the best McCoy quote.
But
what in blazes is this?
He's like, what the hell is there disease on this planet?
But we're missing the point where
they were lucky. They were a bit lucky that the guy who came searching in the cloakroom where the communication was again, it was Eneg, E-N-E-G.
Right.
And he we didn't know at the time, but later we determined that he was part of the resistance. But we didn't know it.
Right. What
Right,
they
because they go,
Enigma-
why don't they recognize
Yes.
us here?
Because
Right.
Enig would have recognized Spock and Kirk from the first episode.
If there's anything
The
we've
first
learned
act.
about the original series as well as the original series movies is convenience reigns supreme. It
That's
always
true.
does.
Right, but there was
That's
reason
always
for
Network
this.
TV of 60 years ago.
There was reason for this convenience. The convenience was
course.
that he was actually a part of the resistance. Maybe that was written in the story later.
Yeah, maybe.
Who
Yeah.
knows?
But
I
we
think they wrote these
overlooked
episodes as they
we
went along.
overlooked McCoy trying to get the damn boots on.
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah.
was
Well,
still
that was-
pretty funny.
That
I
was
love
too
it. And
good.
Spock has to tell him, "You just
yeah,
put your
Spock's
foot."
like, just put your
No,
toes
but
in.
after Enig leaves the room, Isaac reminds Kirk that Enig is part of the resistance.
Yeah, because
Well,
Kirk
yeah.
says something like, or somebody says something like, "Why didn't he like recognize us?" And he goes, "Oh, it was damn lucky you didn't recognize us," or something
He's
like
part
that.
of the resistance, he said.
And then he goes, "Well, he's part of the resistance." Yeah.
Yeah, but I like when Spock tells McCoy this.
We have no time for emotionalism.
He's just giving McCoy shit.
Okay.
I can't believe that all the clips you have audio wise, you don't have the one with him about becoming human.
Oh, I was looking for it. I just couldn't find it.
That was such a good quote.
So okay, so with McCoy now joined with them, the group listens to a speech by Gil, followed by another from his deputy Melicon, pledging the destruction of Zion, which is already taking place as he speaks. Meanwhile, the three are able to sneak into a broadcast booth and find Gil heavily drugged. This is when nerve pinch number 3 happens within the episode. Now, when the speech is going on, guys, I mean, I couldn't see anything more obvious that somebody's not talking than what was going on in that replay of him. Like, it's just a big microphone. First of all, there's 3 microphones, which
Why
I'll
are there
never
3
understand.
microphones?
Yeah, I have no idea why. And the second reason, like, the microphone's so big that you can't see that he's talking. But if I'm talking right now, you could probably see my mouth moving at least a little bit. See how my cheeks move? It's like ridiculous. I don't know. Just
In Nazi Ecosia, they don't look for those types of things. I
Yeah.
guess. You know.
so McCoy.
But can we talk about that nerve pinch? That nerve pinch outside that door.
Yes,
Because
let's do it.
it's significant. Not the nerve pinch itself, right? Because there's always 2 guards, and usually it's Kirk and Spock. So Spock gets the one guy with the nerve pinch, and then usually Kirk will grab the other guy, usually punching him, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But in this case, it's their friend, their Zion friend,
Isaac.
Yeah.
He's the one who takes out the other guy. Now, if you watch it, it is ridiculous because because all the attention's on the
Well,
nerve
every
pinch,
action scene in the original series is.
but they grab
ridiculous.
he grabs the other guard around the neck, and the other guard just goes ah, and just like falls to the ground, and he's apparently unconscious now. So I don't.
Hey, mission accomplished. Get a banner.
It was
Do it right on a
something
carrier.
bizarre. It was something else. It was
It was crazy.
too much. You can take out a Nazi with a machine gun just like that.
Sometimes it's like, you know, like literally, like, you know, when you made like projects when you were like in grade 6 or grade, you know, when you were a kid. That's what I find when I'm watching the original series. Sometimes when they do these moments where it's just like, who thought of this? Who thought this was good? Like, why did they? Like, what was the choreography on this? Like, who said?
You got to remember that you have almost more than 50 years of technology that's come since that happened. So you got to cut them some slack because they didn't have 50 years worth of technology.
But you know what, Ted? I'll disagree with you on that one because even in the 60s, there was action shows and stuff like that did that way better than Star Trek did. Like,
I don't know.
That had nothing to do with technology.
Even
That was just
Batman
my
did it
thing.
better, and Batman.
You got
was
to
pretty
remember
good.
the technology they had in the day was not what it is today. Come on.
Yeah, but you don't need technology to get
technology to throw a fake punch.
Yeah,
I think that it probably had more to do with that. It was 5 o'clock that night. They had to get home for dinner, and they were just like, I don't know, just he grabs him, whatever.
You guys are too harsh on my series. I think it was a brilliant piece of acting, and it should have been nominated for an Emmy.
They had to do these things in a week. They had to film this whole episode in a week.
I'm all season. I'm all original series all the time.
Well,
I'll stand up for my 60s comrades.
That's why you're here.
It's watching Kirk and anybody on this series.
You guys in the modern era, you gotta know that us guys set the groundwork.
Yeah, and watching these guys fight is like watching Geordie the Forge fight. It's terrible.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what? So basically, all right. Partly revived by McCoy, they learn the truth. Gil has taken matters into his own hands on Ecos, which he had found to be in a condition of anarchy when he got there. He tried to help by encouraging the Ecosians to adopt the Nazi Germany as a model, believing they could embrace its efficiency while eschewing its sadistic and xenophobic aspects. Kirk is appalled by Gil's naivete, but Spock points out that the Nazis' phenomenal recovery from Germany's economic and political collapse following World War I might make it a compelling example even for a gentle man such as Gil, which I found very strange, by the way. I felt like they were just writing like a justification to do this episode in these few sentences or these few points of dialogue where it's like, oh yeah, well, the Nazis were really efficient. But that's not a good way to, really explain, like, I like explain the differences between the two people. I don't know. What do you guys make of that?
Well,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dad. Go ahead, Dad. Sorry.
no, I would say that the Nazi, forget about the Nazis, but the Germans in general, they probably would have won the war if they hadn't gone to Russia. They probably would have won the war. They had so much going for them that, they very well could have. I'm not saying they would have, but they could have. And but when they went into Russia, that was the end of them because they couldn't fight it on both fronts. But this is such a small. The whole thing was around a 2-block area of this little town in Nicosia or whatever it is. So it didn't have the same magnitude as Nazism and look at Nuremberg and 200,000 German soldiers in the Nuremberg parade grounds. It was nothing like that.
Right.
Okay, Dave.
Well, my thought on the whole thing was like, what was the sort of the thinking in America in the late 1960s, sort of about Nazi Germany and sort of about World War II and all of that. Like, it's clear that their attitudes from this episode were much softer than they are now, right? Because now it's like,
well, I think they knew that we won the war, and you got to remember in 1968 that war was only 23 years old,
right?
And so it was pretty much new, and most of the fathers of kids like me were in the war.
Right. So why would they want to be nicer to the Nazis?
They didn't like them at all, the Germans. They didn't like the Germans. And if you were Jewish in Canada or the U.S., you hated them. And
like Nimoy and Shatner. So I guess it just, I feel like the Nazis get a favorable shake in this episode as a paramilitary force. Now, I guess there's some legitimacy to that because, you're saying like, well, the Nazis nearly did take over the world and there's got to be something to that. But, those Germans are efficient. But like, I just feel like there's a romanticism that in this episode with that whole thing that I'm uncomfortable with.
I think there's in general a romanticism of the Nazi Party and the Germans. I think there is that little bit of romanticism that's out there. I mean, obviously, if you lived through the war, you wouldn't have any of that. You wouldn't have any of the romanticism. If you were a father like my father or anybody else my age's father who was there, then they wouldn't have that feeling at all. But of course, looking back at it now, it's different.
Here are just a few quick facts about Gene Roddenberry, okay? During World War II, he had a friend named Kim Noonan Singh. After the war, Kim disappeared, and Gene used his name for some characters in Star Trek, including Khan Noon Singh, which was the Wrath of Khan, the same character. He did that because he couldn't find this friend, and he hoped that he would eventually see that episode or the movie and contact him. In 1943, while a United States Army Air Corps pilot, he flew B-17 bombers during World War II. His plane crashed on takeoff because of mechanical failure, killing 2 crew members. Like during World War II, he wrote a song called "I Want to Go Home," which became popular. Like he was very involved in World War II, Gene Roddenberry. So you would think that he would have a certain feeling toward World War II and the Nazis, especially if he didn't fight on their side. He was on the American side.
Yeah.
So it's just odd that just some of the lines of dialogue in this episode that are, I wouldn't say favorable toward the Nazis, but they're not condemning them the way they probably should be.
like coming off just to play this one clip, like this is a movie from 10 years ago, 2008, Glorious Bastards.
We're going to be doing one thing and one thing only. Killing Nazis.
Right? And here they're like, the Nazis, this Federation, a cultural observer, this history teacher, chooses to use Nazism to try to like bring order to a society. There's got to be a whole like dozens, hundreds of other examples in human history that would have been more applicable.
Here's my theory about what happened with this episode. Is they had a bunch of Nazi uniforms and Nazi sets from another movie, and they were like, let's just make an episode about the Nazis, and this will, and then we'll justify it in some sort of couple lines of dialogue, and then like I think if they looked back on this episode, especially Gene Roddenberry, anybody who was in World War II, they would go, what did we do? What is this?
When was The Sound of Music made?
I read something on this episode, believe it or not. You couldn't see it by watching the episode, but I guess somebody actually stopped the video and looked closely. But Adolf Hitler was on Kirk's uniform and on Spock's uniform on the sleeve.
What did it say?
It would said Adolf Hitler right on the sleeve.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Sound of Music was 1965, so it would have been a couple years before this.
So they probably just borrowed those uniforms.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Like,
that's probably what happened.
Well, it seems to be kind of a running theme with season 2 of this series is like, let's reuse sets and stuff like that. Like that city scene from the gangster, which was in season 2 as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that one,
as an example though of a movie, The Sound of Music, right? When we went to Salzburg, we talked to the guide, and they said if the movie was the way the movie was where they were running and escaping the Nazis, they were running right into Germany. They weren't running away from Germany. The way the city's set up, they were going into Germany.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so just getting back to the episode real quick. Okay, so the search party that was looking for the transmission, led by Eneg, Gene backwards, steps into the room and quickly pretends they foiled an assassination attempt by Spock. They convince Eneg to present him to Melicon, which also convinces Isaac that he is a member of the underground resistance. By the way, when Kirk does that, I kind of was like, geez, you just did your best friend dirty. Like, they could have just shot him right there. Like, like, what is he doing? Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't get that moment for Kirk. I mean,
he's a wild guy. He'll take risks.
He does.
Remember, it's a show. They know what's going to happen before it happens.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so all right. So while while they distract Melicon, Kirk struggles to revive Gil to a sufficiently coherent state. Gil is finally able to broadcast a message halting the invasion and declaring Melicon a traitor. Melicon then takes an MP40 machine gun from a guard and then shoots Gil through the broadcast wall, through the wall to the booth, and kills him instantly. Yeah. Isaac, in turn, shoots Melicon twice with a Luger. What?
No, he didn't kill him instantly.
Oh, he didn't
kill
him.
Didn't die instantly.
Oh, right. Yeah, he does say something else. That's right. Sorry.
Yes, he did say something.
Okay, sorry. We'll get
it right, Jeff.
Sorry. Isaac, in turn.
Melicon died instantly.
Yeah, sorry. That's the
integrity of this podcast.
Sorry. Isaac in turn shoots Melicon twice with a Luger. That he killed him instantly. Sorry, that was in my notes. As Gil dies in Kirk's arms, he tells the captain that the Prime Directive was the right way all along.
Yeah, we know.
No kidding.
But the question I have is, Gil could barely wake up, right, from his comatose state, and somehow he was able to put together a speech, like. That's
your question? He got shot like 6 times, and he was
still. Kirk kept injecting him with more stimulant, right?
I know he did. Yeah, he kept it, having no idea how much the guy could take, and he finally got to do the speech.
Yeah, there's a good chance Kirk was going to kill him anyway.
This show would have been way better if Kirk started scalping Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Inglourious Bastards. Think about it. Just saying.
We're going to be doing one thing and one thing only. Killing Nazis.
Did you guys see a clip in the show about Hitler riding in a car?
Yes, they show. Yes.
Yeah, they showed it was like the stock footage kind of thing, right?
Yeah. again,
Was that when and the M2 rockets or the V2 rockets? Was that when it was in the billboard in the city of the city square? Is that when that was shown?
yeah, I think they were also. That's when they showed the young girl, Daras, and yeah, they showed a bunch of different stuff then.
Yeah.
But yes, they had a lot of stock World War II footage. In the other episode we covered, they showed stock World War II footage. So I don't know what's going on in Star Trek, but it was just like, what do we got? What do you got for me footage? Okay, we'll write an episode around that. All right, sounds good.
Yeah. My understanding is that they made a ton of World War II movies in the 50s, right? In particular.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
tons.
Yeah,
some good ones too.
Like
Lots in the 60s actually
war,
too. When you think about it, there was a lot of World War II movies in the 60s.
right.
Okay,
And
so
then-
all right, go ahead, Dave. What were you saying?
I was just thinking about how Voyager later brought in the Nazi thing with
They did.
No one cares about Voyager.
the Erosion.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously the Cardassians are totally a metaphor for Nazis as well. So I
Of
mean, Star Trek learned from this episode and just did it better later.
Well, you have to realize who started the series is also a guy who was deeply influenced by that era.
Absolutely.
So obviously that a lot of that's going to play into some of his writing, I'm sure.
Absolutely, definitely. I mean,
And Roddenberry was Roddenberry still alive when DS9 was launched?
Not when it premiered. He died a little, but he knew about the show.
Yeah, it was starting production when he died, I think.
Yeah, so he was involved.
So I'm sure he had something in there. Like, the Kardashians. There we go. I always say those two fucked up. They're both evil in my opinion. One's
worse than the other.
Chloe.
But one's worse than the other because one's real.
Yeah, that's one's really scary, and the other ones are Cardassians. But anyway, but yeah, no. When you think about that, like, it's obviously it's going to have some influence on him. This is a guy who, obviously is influenced by especially the events of World War II. So you're going to see that kind of treasure out and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so meanwhile, Eneg takes control of the government, declaring there has been enough killing. Now we'll start to live the way the Führer meant us to live. He plans to go on the airwaves with Daras to offer a new way of life for both Akoshians and Zions. Okay, so that's kind of the end of what's happening on Ecos. So
it would have been good if they went back to this planet A and found out like they just fucking totally screwed this up again. And there's now some new Führer in there that's killing stuff.
Well, they're putting a lot of faith in these two people that they just met.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's a non-interference policy. There's only so much they can do other than leave.
Well, he's already interfered enough, so
right.
Might as well take off. Plus, it's also Kirk. Like, this is a guy who goes, "Oh yeah, superhuman. You go hang out on that planet."
So the prime
we'll be back in the movies.
The Prime Directive only applies because they don't have warp technology yet, right?
Yeah, but yes, I think that's correct.
I think so. Yeah.
But how did the Zions get to Ecos?
Well, I think it's like us going to Mars. We can do that, right?
Right.
We can do it, but it takes a while.
Yeah.
But they're surprised that they're able to develop nuclear weapons. So they were able to go to space before they could develop a nuclear weapon. That's interesting.
Well, considering especially if you think about Zephyr Conqueror, and the person who invented warp travel, he built it out of an old missile, right? Like, obviously they would have to have some sort of technology like that.
Right. Okay, so back on board the Enterprise, Spock expresses confusion as to how a man as logical as Gil could make such a mistake emulating the Nazis. Kirk says
he's an idiot.
Yeah. Kirk says the problem was not simply the Nazis themselves, but giving any one individual so much power. McCoy remarks how power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Spock dryly points out several examples from Earth's history of just that mentality, and Kirk cuts off the argument by saying, "Gentlemen, we've been through one Civil War. Let's start another."
Yeah.
Kirk then orders that inside of to plot a course and break out of orbit.
Take us out, warp 2.
Yeah, he's like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. Between McCoy and Spotty, who do you think? Spock, who do you think would win?
Between McCoy and Spock and what?
Just a fist fight.
Oh, McCoy kick his
ass. Spock would win because
I think the aggression of McCoy would win.
Spock is still half Vulcan, so therefore he's at least twice as strong as any human.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but
he's also got that pinch thing. All right, fine.
McCoy's got
Anyway,
more.
let's move on.
Many times I can remember Spock saying, "Doctor, you would not have survived."
No. Spock can easily overpower McCoy or any other human. But at the end of this episode, Spock says, well, now that the Ecosians and the Zions are friends again, they're going to be real like chummy with each other. First of all, no, they're not. And second of all, and then he says,
there's not going to be any retaliation at all.
they would make a great member for the Federation. Like, what are you talking about? Like, these we don't want the Nazis in the Federation.
Can't handle being dealt with to begin with, and then
even if they're benign Nazis, they're still
benign
Nazis.
I think
That's what John Gill says. He's like, Nazism would work only if I made it benign. It's by its very definition, it's not benign. It's Nazism. It's and Kirk and
fascist.
The message here seems to be it's not that the Nazis were wrong. It's just that it was totalitarianism. It was the dictator that. It was the fact that Hitler. Other than that, the Nazis maybe were onto something. What are you talking about?
What happens if it turned out this planet is actually the Kardashians? Kardashians. There you go. Kardashians.
I mean,
what if it turns out that that's actually what it was?
That episode was banned from being shown in Germany for 27 years till 1995.
Wow. Yeah, but that's because of the swastika.
Yeah.
Because there's not allowed. Germany didn't allow any imagery of the swastika. Didn't matter what it was. No. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So and I'm actually kind of surprised that they even bothered to go that route, because usually when you go that route, like a lot of shows, when they decided to depict Nazism, they didn't actually show the swastika. They would have some sort of other symbol, like an eagle or something, instead of the swastika. Yeah. So it was interesting to see how accurate their uniforms were.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming they got those uniforms from somewhere else.
So let's just go through some quick facts and see how many things we said were correct. So one of them, all the Nazi uniforms used in this episode are taken directly from Paramount's costume storage and were previously featured in many of the studio's World War II era films. Many of them featured mismatched Polowitz collar tabs and other rank identifying insignia.
Yeah, it is fucked up.
The leader
watching this in high res, you notice that some of those uniforms are looking pretty beat up.
Oh yeah, some of them are not spick and span like they should have been. Because that was another thing Hitler was very, very concerned with, was image.
Yeah, so there's probably like a 10-year-old costume.
Yeah, you couldn't wear, like, I remember there was talk of him shooting somebody because their knees were scuffed up in a dress uniform.
So this episode was finally shown in Germany in 1996.
Yep. Yeah, that's what Ted was saying, right?
Yeah, that's when it was first shown.
That's the swastika band, though. I don't think it has anything to do with the content.
So the guy who plays Melicon has also been in several World War II movies. Playing in 1944, even he played a Nazi youth. That was during the war. So
he had a whole career of playing a Nazi.
Hey,
what
if you're good at something, keep doing it.
Name? Did he have one?
The guy who played him?
Yeah, in the show.
No, his name is just Melicon.
Oh, he didn't have like Adolf Melicon.
No.
Well, I don't think Gil was there for that long, was he?
5 years.
Well, yeah. 5 years isn't long enough to name a kid who's clearly in his minimum teens, if not older.
So the sequence you were talking about, where they show Adolf Hitler in a car, is used to represent John Gill as the Führer on Planet Ecos. The sequence was used from stock footage from the movie The Triumph of the Will from 1935, an infamous Nazi propaganda film for whose production Lene Riefenstahl was responsible.
It looked familiar. Yeah, I know exactly what that is. All right.
So the remastered version of Patterns of Force aired in North America in 2007. With this episode, an entirely new shot of the Enterprise phaser and the Ecosian warhead was substituted. So they did some more CGI for that kind of stuff.
That's the version I watched, which is the one that's on Netflix right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the one I watched.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Several uniforms, such as Kirk and McCoy's show cuff bands reading Adolf Hitler. They represent members of the Lebensraad Adolf Hitler, special bodyguards of the Führer, which I'm guessing they had in their costume storage, and that's why they used that stuff. Early draft. Go ahead.
You keep going. No, keep going. You got a long spiel?
No, I'm just going through some fun facts here. Just
that's like you're boring me. I got shit to say.
Go ahead.
No, I want to have everybody on after every episode. We're gonna give it a rating out of 10. And Dave, you're gonna keep track of these, okay? So
Oh, okay. Well, I better start a spreadsheet.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back a few episodes to do the last pre ones, okay? So that we can all put a rating on what we thought of the episode.
Okay,
just as an episode, as like entertainment. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Like, what did you think about it? Did you like it? Would you give it a 5, an 8, a 10, a 9?
Okay.
What would you give it?
Sure. Okay, we can do that.
We'll do that at the end of the broadcast.
Okay.
And we'll go back and do last week.
We're almost there. We're almost about to wrap this up. I just had a few other fun facts. This takes place in 2268, just so we have an idea of when it is. This is the second occasion after Star Trek: The City on the Edge of Forever where Vulcans are shown to have body hair, with Spock fully removing his shirt to show a full front torso covered in hair. There's a lot of fun facts in this episode, just so you guys know.
You also get to watch Kirk sucking his gut the whole time during that scene.
Oh, he absolutely.
Like, did you notice that? Like, he's literally struggling trying to hold it all in. You can tell Shatner's just like, I didn't know I was gonna do this.
Yeah. Why do I have to take my shirt off? Because you're getting
Shatner's weight gain is much more noticeable in the third season, but
it's big, yeah. Well, he was going through a divorce and stuff at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah, pretty much between the second and third seasons.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's pretty much it for my notes and what I have for the recap. Is there anything else, you guys? Final thoughts?
I don't know. Like, I think I said it all. Like, it's an interesting episode. It's an interesting Prime Directive episode, but like, I think like it's just a little too Nazi friendly for my taste. So I'm going to give it a lower ranking. I'm going to give it a 5.
Really?
So
I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to give it an 8 because I thought it kept you on the edge of the seat. So I'm going with an 8.
An 8, okay.
I don't know if edge of the seat is where I'd go. I'd give it a solid 7, but it's a very good. I think it's a good episode. It's one of my favorites.
I'll give it a 6.
And you're giving it a 6. That will average it out at
6.5 or 7.
6.3.
6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
6.5.
6.5 out of 10 is what it gets.
That's probably what it should be. Let's see what.
Okay. Now, Dave, last week's episode was which one was last week's?
Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. That was with the Frank Gorshin.
Frankie Gorshin. Oh, yes.
So on IMDb, this one is ranked at a 7.6.
Too high. I say.
I gave it an 8, so I'm right with them. Me and Jody are averaging pretty good.
It's a solid episode.
Yeah, me and Jody are thinking along the same lines.
Let's just retroactively just quickly do the 2 episodes we've done before this, which was let's do Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, which was the Loki episode, the half white, half black. Guys,
I get rethinking.
Okay, I'll give my rating first. I'm going to give that a 7. It would have been an 8, but that Frankie Gorshin run at the end, cut it down to a 7.
That episode is a solid 5. And that run is a solid 7. I don't know where you were. I don't know what episode you were watching. That thing was magic. That was TV magic right there. But no, if I had to give the whole episode a rating, I would say probably about a 6.
I gave it a 7.
I'll give it a 7 as well.
7. So that episode averaging out at 6.75. So we consider that to be better. I gave it a 7.
Okay.
And Jody gave it a 6. So he was.
I brought it down.
What's the next one?
And then a piece of the action, which is the gangster one.
Oh, that was amazing.
I give that a very high marking because I like that one, so I'll give it a 9.
I'm not going to give that a 9. I'll give that maybe a 7.5.
Ooh.
I'll give that an 8 because that one was entertaining.
I'll give it a 6. So that's the highest rated episode of them all.
The thing I've learned about this from this podcast is Dave really hates Star Trek.
He doesn't like the original series. He's not a big fan of the original series.
Well, next week we're going to have a different episode. Do you want to hear what the next episode's going to be?
We do.
I'm literally at the edge of my seat right now.
Yes, he's on the edge of his seat.
It's going to be called The Return to Tomorrow.
Return to Tomorrow.
Now I gotta look that one up.
What season?
And you're going to remember a famous guy and is in this show. His name is Sargon.
Oh,
Remember Sargon?
yeah, I think I do know this one.
I think I know what you're talking about. That's
Sargon's
it's still in
like
season
this
2.
ball.
Is that in season 1?
Oh,
Yeah, I
this
know
is
that-
the one. This is the one with the
I know the
ball.
episode you're talking about. I know this episode.
Oh,
This
there.
is the
I
one.
Sargon.
I
This is
love the
oh,
description.
this has Pulaski in it, Jody.
Yeah, this has Pulaski in it. My favorite.
Who's
Yeah.
Pulaski?
So the actress, her name is, I think it's, what is the actress's name? She's the one who wears the red. She's a red shirt in this episode. Her Anne Mulhall. She's like the, you know how there's the 3 balls and there's the female ball and she gets put into the female.
Yeah.
Ball. Okay, her. So she went on to play a character on The Next Generation called Dr. Pulaski, who was just in the 2nd season when Dr. Crusher left for a season. So
Yeah,
I see.
Had a dispute, so she didn't come back for season 2. So they brought in Pulaski. But what's interesting about Pulaski during all 3 seasons, the 2nd season of Next Gen, is she's only credited as a guest star. She's not actually part of the cast.
right.
But she's in every episode.
She's in every episode for a whole season. And she's
season.
never referenced again after she leaves.
Yeah, and once she leaves, done. You don't hear anything about it.
So was she just brought in because Gene Roddenberry wanted it?
She was brought in because Gates McFadden wouldn't sign the contract.
Oh, really?
That's what ended up happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gates
and then Patrick
McFadden wanted more money.
Stewart.
And
Patrick Stewart was
apparently-
largely responsible for bringing Gates McFadden back, but
Yes, but what's also interesting about that, which is a little not really much to do with this, but what's interesting is the amount of fan mail they got on Gates McFadden not being around for season 2 is one of the reasons why they brought her back.
okay. So we're watching that one. Return to Tomorrow with Diana Muldaur, aka Pulaski. That's next week. All right, I like that episode.
Sargon.
I like that episode. I'm gonna see if I like it more than these other 3 that we've watched.
And the
It's a
voice
good
of Sargon, you know who it is?
Is it James
No.
Doohan?
That's right.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
There you go. Well, okay, so well, join us next week for another original series episode, the Return to Tomorrow, and we'll be here to recap. If you guys want to, join along with the recap, ask us questions, watch this episode within the next week, and you can be a part of the broadcast, or you can be part
Find
of
a backyard,
yeah.
find a beer, find a webcam. That's all
That's
you
right.
need.
That's all you need. That's all you need to be a part of Live Long and Podcast. The needs of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Or the needs of one.
Jeff,
Or
what's
the
that
one.
picture doing in your background tonight?
Well, you
What's
like
that?
that? It's 3 guys putting bins on top. I don't know what it's supposed to mean, but it's
They're building things together. They're working together. It's teamwork.
it's one's Bones, one's McCoy, one's Spock. How's that? I don't know.
They're making a stack of
Dave, I think
blocks.
that's your picture, isn't it? Is that
It's-
James'
it's from-
picture?
It's from my old workplace. It was done
Oh.
by some well-known Burlington artist, as far as I know. So
Oh,
we're
it's
out
probably
there.
worth
There's a nice
fortune.
signature on the bottom right there. You can see. I don't know. Whoever's signature that is.
Yeah.
You're getting a free plug.
You're gonna have to let them know that it's now.
If you want to buy some of their art, just
famous
look them
art.
up. Yeah,
Hopefully, we won't get a copyright strike.
Movie I'm watching his favorite movie.
Jody, best watching your favorite movie.
She's watching episode 6, season Star Trek 6.
Amazing.
it's my
movie.
favorite one too.
Amazing.
You
But
have the
that's not what we
poster
have
right behind
tomorrow here on Live Long and Podcast. We have
we
Star Trek
unfortunately have one of
5.
the worst
We
ones.
unfortunately have to
final-
get through Kirk in the woods, and
Kirk
that's
in
But I
what
will
we
tell you, other than the woods scene, this isn't nearly as bad as I remember it being.
I have to rewatch it. I just know I hate it.
What does God need with a starship?
That is a cool line, by the way. Wait,
That's
what does God?
Is this where they go to see God?
Yes, well,
yeah,
supposedly.
right. And you can
Yeah.
bet that's going to be on the soundboard tomorrow.
It better be on the soundboard tomorrow. That's the only good clip in the entire movie.
It's the most well-known thing from that whole movie.
That
All
is
right.
a cool line.
Well, I
Anyway.
think we're all good
Okay.
here, guys. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you again next week. Live Long and Podcast.